Hey, good morning, Raman. How you doing this morning? Oh, let me put that away. Cause okay, guys, ladies and gents, let me tell you right now, I'm not feeling it today, and my body is hurting. I'm hurting from head to toe, and really, the only thing I want to do right now is go crawl in bed underneath an electric blanket and just stay there until I quit hurting. But this the fallout that has started on this ruling by the Supreme Court yesterday is absolutely amazing. Let's start off here with Joe Biden, our president. He actually gave a speech last night, 4 minutes, but he actually went out in front and had something to say. Now, first thing I want to do, bring your attention to, is he's gotten a hell of a suntan in 48 hours since the debates. He's got one hell of a suntan. Look at that. Either that or else they decided Orange Man is not so bad. And they put some bronzer on him to make him look halfway decent, like he's not a walking corpse. I'm not one to, I normally don't pick on people's looks. But when all I've heard for 8 years now is Orange Man bad, and then the walking corpse comes out looking like an orange man, well. But anyway, let's go ahead and listen to this 4 minutes of Joe Biden. Almost 5 minutes.
The presidency is the most powerful office in the world. It's an office that not only tests your judgment, perhaps even more importantly, it's an office that can test your character.
And Joe, that's a test you failed. You have failed that test of character, in my honest opinion. But let's go on.
Because you not only face moments when you need the courage to exercise the full power of the presidency, you also face moments where you need the wisdom to respect the limits of the power of the office of the presidency.
You mean like when Trump had the opportunity to send military strikes into an area after an attack on American military, and I believe it was some drones and other equipment. And he asked if what was the chances of people getting hurt or killed. And when he heard the answer, he said, no, then let's not do it because I don't want to kill people unnecessarily. Oh, yeah, I remember that happening. All right. Trump was very restrained in the uses of his authority as president. Quite unlike you when you sent your people from the Department of Justice down to work with Bragg and Smith and talk with Fannie Willis on occasions after occasion in order to take Trump out through the judicial system. But yeah, okay, so let's go ahead and talk about character and the misuse of the power of the White House.
This nation was founded on the principle that there are no kings in America. Each of us is equal before the law. No one is above the law, not even the President of the United States.
That's right. And when the President of the United States breaks the law, there is built into the Constitution a remedy for that. It's called impeachment for high crimes and misdemeanors. All right?
With today's Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity, that fundamentally changed.
No, it did not. Presidents can still be impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors.
For all practical purposes, today's decision almost certainly means that there are virtually no limits on what a president can do.
There's always been limits to what a president can do. Donald Trump had a lot of his things that he wanted to do that got limited by Congress. You're the one that has violated Supreme Court rulings with your giveaways to and forgiving of student loans after the Supreme Court ruled that you couldn't do it. But you went ahead and did it anyway. And the weak ass Republicans didn't do a damn thing about it.
A fundamentally new principle. And it's a dangerous precedent because the power of the office will no longer be constrained by the law, even including the Supreme Court of the United States.
Nonsense. Nonsense. No president. It's been basically an unwritten rule that no president can be arrested for things he did as president that was within the scope of his powers as part of being a president, as outlined under the Constitution. And as far as breaking the law, once again, shall I refer you to impeachment? Impeachment's not just used, as you Democrats have been using it here lately, to get rid of a president you don't like, who you disagree with on political bases, but for actual removal of office for high crimes and misdemeanors, real crimes. Let me remind you of one president who actually needed to be impeached but wasn't because he resigned, Nixon. The president who was impeached and should have been convicted but wasn't, Bill Clinton. Those were actual crimes that they committed while in office.
The only limits will be self-imposed by the president alone. This decision today has continued the court's attack in recent years on a wide range of long-established legal principles in our nation.
You mean attacks on legal principles? You mean like this, the Democrats' attack on the Second Amendment? Oops. You don't want to talk about that now, do you?
From gutting voting rights and civil rights.
They haven't gutted rights, voting rights or civil rights. All they said is that if you want to vote, you have to prove you're a U.S. citizen and have a photo ID card to ensure that only people who are eligible to vote, vote, and not a bunch of people who've been imported from out of the country. And nobody's civil rights have been violated by the Supreme Court.
To taking away a woman's right to choose.
A woman still has the right to choose. She has the right to choose as to whether or not she is going to have sex. And in some states, she's required to enjoy the consequences of having sex, just like men in all 50 states are required to enjoy the consequences of having sex. So, no, women didn't lose any reproductive rights, Joe Biden, no matter how often you guys want to say it.
To today's decision that undermines the rule of law of this nation.
It does no such thing. It does no such thing.
Nearly 4 years ago, my predecessor sent a violent mob to the U.S. Capitol to stop the peaceful transfer of power.
Bullshit. Bullshit, Joe Biden. He told them to peacefully march and protest. He did not tell them to go to the Capitol. He told them to obey the laws. All right? He didn't tell them to go up there and invade the Capitol. And he actually, at one point, told people to go home. He did not. So, once again, you're lying your ass off. It was your FBI and your other infiltrators that you had, like Epps, Roger Epps, that tried and influenced people to actually enter the Capitol.
We all saw it with our own eyes. We sat there and watched it happen that day.
Yeah, we watched what happened. Now, did some of the people do some things once they got inside that were wrong? Yes. But how many of those people got escorted around by security? Huh? The shaman was escorted around by the security, had doors unlocked for him by security, was told not to go certain places by security, and he didn't go. Yeah, Joe, we know about that. So stop your dumbass lying.
Attack on the police, the ransacking at the Capitol, a mob literally hunting down the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, gallows erected to hang the Vice President, Mike Pence.
Oh, gee, yeah, gallows, okay, yeah. And people walked around, left-wingers walked around with Donald Trump's head on a spike or cut off. Kathy Griffin cut off and held up by the hair. Nothing new, Joe Biden. Nothing new, Mr. Biden, Mr. President. It's just the left's been doing it a hell of a lot longer and a lot more often than anybody on the conservative side did it. That's what shocks you. Some people on the conservative side actually did what the left's been doing for years.
I think it's fair to say it's one of the darkest days in the history of America.
Nah, nowhere near. Nowhere near. Not when compared to the attempted bombings by the left of the Capitol, of congressional white offices. Oh, you want to forget about those, do you? Huh? You want to forget about the times the left has broken in and committed violence within the Capitol, performed sit-ins. You want to forget about those? You don't want to bring them up now, do you?
Now the man who sent that mob to the U.S. Capitol is facing
Liar.
potential criminal conviction for what happened that day. And the American people deserve to have an answer in the courts before the upcoming election.
Just play back the actual tapes of what he said. The tapes that you guys had removed from YouTube and other media sources. Play him back of what he actually said. Release the tweets that he actually said, put out there. He didn't do any of this stuff that you're talking about, Joe. You're lying out your ass.
The public has a right to know the answer about what happened on January 6th.
Then why did the House January 6th committee destroy all their records at the end of their committee? Huh? Why did they destroy all their records, Joe? Why'd you fight so hard against getting released the videos, besides the cherry-picked ones that the J6 committee put out there? Remember how much you guys fought, and then they got McCarthy released them to Tucker, and oh my God, you guys had a heart attack. Shall we remember those?
Before they asked to vote again this year. Now, because of today's decision, that is highly, highly unlikely. It's a terrible disservice to the people of this nation. So now the American people have to do what the courts should have been willing to do, but will not. The American people have to render a judgment about Donald Trump's behavior. The American people must decide whether Donald.
If they're given all the information and not just the lies that you and the left and the media are putting out there, they're given all the information what's going on of what happened. Yes, people did some bad things on January 6th. No different than the bad things that had happened for all during 2020, all throughout the country. And yes, at the Capitol. By liberals, by Democrats. And shall we remind you of Maxine Waters and her speeches for her people to attack anybody who is a conservative that they saw in public and let them know that they weren't wanted? Remember that? Should Maxine Waters have been brought up on charges?
Donald Trump's assault on our democracy on January 6th makes him unfit for public office in the highest office in the land. The American people must decide if Trump's embrace of violence to preserve his power is acceptable.
You really want to talk about violence to preserve power? The riots that took place the day that Trump was sworn into office. You don't want to talk about that, do you? The damage done to businesses. I remember limos, videos of limos being burned. Joe, you're so damn full of it, it's not funny. You don't want to talk about the violence that your side, your followers have committed. I'm not happy that anybody performed any violence on January 6th. But damn it, you should not be surprised when you and yours have gotten away with it for so damn long that some people on the other side finally decided to follow your tactics.
Perhaps most importantly, the American people must decide if they want to entrust the president once again, the presidency, to Donald Trump, now knowing he'll be even more emboldened to do whatever he pleases whenever he wants to do it. You know, at the outset of our nation, it was the character of George Washington, our first president, to find the presidency. He believed power was limited, not absolute. And that power always resides with the people, always. Now, over 200 years later, today's Supreme Court decision, once again, it'll depend on the character of the men and women who hold that presidency.
It always has depended upon the character of the men and women who've held that presidency. It's always depended upon them. Do you really want to go back into the dirty tricks performed by JFK? And JFK was a good president, but he pulled some damn dirty tricks with the CIA. Or how about Bill Clinton? How about Obama ordering military airstrikes on American citizens overseas? Would you really like to see Obama brought back and charged with murder? Because he ordered an airstrike on an American citizen overseas? Think about it, Joe. There is no statute of limitations on murder. You need to be damned happy the ruling came out the way it did out of the SCOTUS today, because your ass is covered also for some of the shenanigans you've pulled. This ruling is saving you a hell of a lot of trouble.
That are going to define the limits of the power of the presidency, because the law will no longer do it. I know I will respect the limits of the presidential powers I have for 3.5 years, but any president, including Donald Trump, will now be free to ignore the law.
Joe, once again, let me remind you, the Congress has the act to remove a president for high crimes and misdemeanors. Just remember that.
I concur with Justice Sotomayor's dissent today. Here's what she said. She said, in every use of official power, the president is now a king above the law. With fear for our democracy, I dissent. End of quote.
Yeah, and yeah, you should have not said those last three words there, Joe. End of quote. But let's where did it go? Let's look at Sotomayor's dissent here, okay? The President of the United States is the most powerful person in the country and possibly the world. When he uses his official powers under the majority's reasoning, he will now be insulated from criminal prosecution. Orders the Naval SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival, immune. Organizes the military, next page, coup to hold power, immune. Takes a bribe in exchange for a pardon, immune. Immune, immune, immune. Now, this is the part that you need to be happy about, Joe. Let the president violate the law. Let him exploit the trappings of his office for personal gain. Okay, big guy, we know about your 10%. Let him use his official power for evil ends. Because if he knew that he may one day face liability for breaking the law, he might not be as bold as fearless as we would like him to be. All right, Joe. Let's talk about this crap. Let's talk about it. You really think that you are going to be prosecuted now for what you've done with your son, Hunter? You should be damn glad those rulings come down today.
So should the American people dissent. I dissent. May God bless you all, and may God help preserve our democracy. Thank you.
We're not a democracy, Joe. Stop lying to the American people. Constitutional representative republic. Do you have difficulty remembering that, Joe? Or is it you don't want to remind the American people what the story actually is?
May God protect our troops.
Then he walked off stage, didn't answer any questions. All right, I'm back to the screen, guys, so I can look at what was said in chat. So let me scroll back up here and see what I missed. Morning, Joshua. Morning, Tyre. Exactly, Raman. Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi, they all encourage violent acts. None of them were ever prosecuted for it. Okay, Tyre. Yeah, I know. Stop. I'm already voting for Trump. The same here. Yeah, what is an American? Again, United States citizen. Hey, morning, Lazel. Good morning. All right. The left their reaction to that decision yesterday, none of them have really thought it through, or they think the American people, the United States Americans, are too damn stupid. But then again, we are talking about a bunch of Democrats and liberals, people that can't define what a woman is. But one of the biggest loudmouths on the left, she opened her mouth again yesterday. AOC, the Supreme Court has been consumed by corruption crisis beyond its control. Today's ruling represents an assault on American democracy. See, there they are once again with this democracy. It is up to Congress to defend our nation from this authoritarian capture. I intend on filing articles of impeachment upon our return. So the question is who all is she planning on impeaching? She plan on filing impeachment again? Okay, Thomas is one. We know that's going to happen. Alito is one. But she going to file against Roberts? She going to file against Conan Barrett? Yeah. Who else is she going to file against? I mean, we know she's not going to file against the three liberal judges. Yeah, that really is unfortunate, but she's in there now for good. She'll when looks and sounds more like Pelosi is when she'll finally get out. I expect her one day to actually be in the running for the Speaker of the House. I really and truly do. When she won, if she when she retains her seat in November, because I seriously doubt if a Republican is going to take that seat. I'm not going to disagree with you on that, Joshua. We did get a break, a 4-year break, and that's one of the reasons why they're so mad. Because remember, Hillary was to continue Obama's plan, or the plans that Obama had set in motion, with the fundamental transformation of the United States into a socialist country. And then along comes Trump, and enough people that liked what Trump had to say woke up enough people that I can't believe I just said that turn of phrase, but anyway, energized enough people to actually get out there and vote for a man who actually wanted to return America to what it's supposed to have been. I'm not looking forward to that day, Tyra, but I don't see where that's. I mean, I see it being a strong possibility. What's this next one? Okay, I don't need that anymore. Oh, give me a second here. I, 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 okay. Now here is a quote unquote top legal scholar reacting to AOC's call to impeach the Supreme Court justices. And this is what she's got to say.
Capture. I think there's a lot of validity to that perspective. I think that the court, with this decision, has really ensconced a profoundly minoritarian view of presidential power at the heart of its jurisprudence. And that is not a view that I would ever have expected to see the Supreme Court backing. It's a view of, Federalist Society and really extremists, not even mainstream Federalist Society viewpoints. It's the sort of view that Professor John Yoo, my former colleague at Berkeley, defended in Section 5 of the torture memos way back when in 2002.
2002, right after, okay, I mean, we all know what happened in 2001, 9/11. All right, so this was that discussion right after, that attack on the United States and the World Trade Towers.
When he said that even a federal statute making torture impermissible would be unconstitutional if it tied the hands of the president. Now, that's an extreme view of presidential power.
Presidents cannot break the law. All right, let's agree with this. Presidents can't break the law. They can't order somebody to break the law. But maybe it's because I've spent time in the military. I spent time in aircraft maintenance. Regulations are extremely tight when it's actually performing maintenance on the aircraft because you've got other people's lives in your hands. There is one particular component that we had to install on the aircraft, weighed over 300 pounds. If we were to follow the regulation on installing that component, it would take us at least an hour. If we were to follow the regulations. Whereas we could still safely do it, not following the regulations, but following common practice and common sense in under 5 minutes. I had to change out that component one day on an aircraft with the general sitting in the cockpit. I want to say it was a 2-star. Yeah, it was a 2-star general. And as usual, every butt kisser on base was out there to see him off. Well, that component went bad on his jet. They called me out. I found out, I diagnosed it down, yada, yada, yada. I walked over, talked to the head shed, and said, listen, we got one of two ways to do about it. I can ground aboard the jet, and then he can come back in an hour and a half, and I can have it fixed, or I can fix it right now. But if I do that, everybody in this group's got to turn their back while I'm doing it, because they cannot watch me watch us change this part out, because I'm not going to get any of us written up. He laughed. He had everybody turn their backs. We changed the parts. Everybody was happy. The jet got off on time. General was there. And the colonel I talked to, he called me over afterwards and he said, okay, you're a smart ass, aren't you? I said, yes, sir, I am. He goes, okay, well, you know what you're doing. So let's pretend this crap never happened. If you're going to tell me that the president, in order to prevent the killings of American citizens, United States citizens, is not allowed to apply the thumb screws, waterboard, pour burning pitch on somebody's legs to get them to relinquish codes or whatever it would take to stop the loss of 3,000 lives again, by God, I hope he does it. To hell with the law on torture. I want to see that American president have the backbone, the balls enough to order what's needed to be done to save American lives, to save our lives. Even if it was Nancy Pelosi, even if it was AOC, I don't care. If it come down to a terrorist threat and it took torture to find the information needed to save lives, by God, he better use every ounce of torture that he's got available to him. I don't care. Josh, if you're leaving, then y'all have a good day. I'm sorry. Sorry I missed you, buddy. I want to see a president have the nerve to do what is needed to be done to save American lives. You can sit there and mambly-pambly about the whole thing and saying that it's shocking to the conscience. What's shocking to the conscience is somebody actually killing thousands of people through their actions or actions they directed. The left is willing, and this is the part that gets me, the left is willing to take away the rights of American citizens, of United States American citizens. Our Second Amendment rights, they're willing to take those away from us to preserve the life, to preserve lives. But they're not willing to apply whatever means would be necessary to save lives because of somebody threatening to set off a bomb or a terrorist attack. They're not willing to secure our borders to ensure who's coming across the borders, that they're not terrorists. The president, in doing what he needs to do to ensure the safety and security of our country, he may have to order some things done on an individual case that we find repugnant, that we find shocking to our conscience, that turns our stomachs to think about. They did what to this guy to get the answers out of him? But the end result was lives were saved. And I don't care whose lives they are. American citizens' lives were saved. And should a president have some DA like Bragg or Fannie sit there and after they get out of office, charge them with felonies? Charge them with crimes? And drag them and have some liberal judge tell a court, the jury, that they don't have to be in agreement? It doesn't take all 12 of them to convict him? I mean, if they're willing to do what they've done to Trump in these charges that they've brought, these nonsensical, made up bullshit charges. Hey, Digi. Think. And just remember, I've said this before. They don't think that shoe could be put on the other foot. And the shoe they're kicking Donald Trump in the ass with right now can be used to kick them in the ass later. Now, there are some people saying this is a bad ruling. The president should not have immunity on the core duties of his office. And I'll stand there and discuss it with them. And I'll still say they're wrong. One of the major core duties of that president is to keep the citizens safe from attacks within and attacks without. These kind of wars are not pretty. They're not something that many would consider honorable. They're dirty, they're nasty, they're ugly. But sometimes that is what it takes to keep the country safe. And this is on a case by case by case basis. Now, I'm not for going out and just wholesale capturing people, taking POWs in a war like the Vietnamese did during, or China did during Vietnam War and the other wars overseas. And wholesale torture just to torture. I'm not for that. And that is wrong. That is inhumane. That is breaking. All right. That is the step too far. That is a crime. Just think if we had gotten wind on 9/1 of what was going to happen on 9/11. And in order to get the information we needed to stop 9/11 from happening, we had to torture one or two people to get the information to stop the attacks that happened on 9/11. Would that be worth it? Saving 3,000 lives? Disgusting, but worth it. Ugly, but worth it. Especially if that was one of your family members that was going to be saved that day. And should a president of either party be prosecuted for authorizing that action that ended up saving lives? Simply because of the letter that follows his name? Have a Democrat prosecutor filed because every one of these prosecutors that came after Trump are Democrats. Imagine the Republican prosecutors lining up to go after Biden. Or going after Pelosi, especially since we now have an audio tape, have audio and video records of Pelosi admitting she was responsible for the attacks that happened on January 6th because she turned down the additional the additional security offered by the president. She admitted it. She claimed responsibility. Should she be prosecuted? The minute she gets out of office, should she be prosecuted for it? There's been a lot of impeachment investigations filed over our country's history. Now, as far as actual impeachments, all right. Oh, and one other thing here before I get going into any further. Back in 1982, a case was brought to the Supreme Court. You're not going to hear much about this. 1982, Nixon versus Fitzgerald. Supreme Court case dealing with presidential immunity from civil liability for actions taken while in office. The court found that the president is entitled to absolute immunity from all damages or from damages liability predicated on his official acts. Now, is it really that big of a step to say if he's immune from civil liability, he's also immune from criminal liability? This guy Fitzgerald filed a lawsuit against government officials that he lost his position as a contractor for the Air Force because of testimony before Congress in '68. Among the people, the lawsuit was ex-President Nixon, who argued the president cannot be sued for actions while he's in office. The trial court and appellate court rejected. The case was then appealed to the Supreme Court. In a 5-4 decision, The court ruled the president is entitled to absolute immunity from legal liability for civil damages. Based on his official acts. Courts, however, emphasize the president is not necessarily immune from criminal charges stemming from his official or unofficial acts. Definitely from his unofficial. The court found the president's absolute immunity extends to all acts within the outer perimeter of his duties within office. So the only difference between this ruling in 1982 and the one that just handed down was the court said that the president is immune from criminal charges stemming from his official acts. Because initially the court said not necessarily. You're not going. I hadn't heard anybody bring this court up, this opinion up. I honestly, I'll be honest, I found this by accident this morning, researching Supreme Court decisions dealing with the president. I found it totally by accident. I don't know if, but I haven't heard anybody else mention it. So, if anybody wants to look that up again, it's it was Nixon versus Fitzgerald, 1982. Let me go ahead and post the link to that for you. Hey, Retro, how's it going? Close up a couple of these tabs that I don't need. So we'll see what happens with AOC. I'm going to be kind of curious as to what kind of who all she's going to name in her impeachment of the Supreme Court justices. That's going to be kind of interesting to see. There's been, I read again this morning, Sotomayor suggesting that a president could send SEAL Team 6 out to attack or kill a political opponent. Well, she just said go out and attack or kill somebody. Well, several posters, Harry Sisson being one of them, but several people on the left have made suggestions that Biden should send out SEAL Team 6 to take out Trump or to take out the Supreme Court justices. Being as the FBI has been out investigating people for what they have posted on Facebook and Twitter, you can find those some videos on that on YouTube. I wonder if Harry Sisson and these liberals who are making these suggestions based upon Sotomayor's dissent, will they be getting visits from the FBI or the Secret Service? I'm kind of curious to see if that happens. Let's see. I think that is all I've got open here for today. Because, like I said when I started the stream here, I am not feeling good today. I am hurting from my shoulders on down to the soles of my feet. So I think I am going to go ahead and end the stream here. I know it's only about an hour, but I wanted to discuss this ruling. I wanted I really wanted to discuss this ruling here real quick here today. But anyway, I want you all to have a good day, at least a better day than what I'm going to have. Enjoy yourselves, relax, be with the ones you love, and love the ones that you're with. All right? Have a good one, all. Later.